What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Today we have a very special video for you. I am joined by my friends who all have their own amazing channels, but when we come together like this to collab, we are the Golden Company. And this video is our first official collaboration together. I am joined by GrayArea, Secrets of the Citadel, and Cal's Fookin Chickens. Since this is our first video together, we decided to bring you something epic, and who better to discuss than Jon Snow. In this video, we will list all of our predictions for this character, starting at Season 7, Episode 1 until the Season 7 finale. But before we get started, does everyone want to say what's up to the listeners?
Yeah, sounds good, Dan. This is Kyle's Fookin Chickens, and I'm happy to be part of the Golden Company. Really excited. Our word is as good as gold. Beneath the gold, the bitter steel. Get hype, everyone.
Hi, this is Gemma from Secrets of the Citadel. Glad to be joining you all today. Over to you, Gray.
Hey guys, it's GrayArea, and I'm here to talk some Jon Snow with the fellow Golden Company members and you guys. We had to give y'all this.
Kyle, would you like to start us off and let everyone know where Jon Snow's story left off at the end of Season 6?
So we know that Jon is in a unique position now. We saw the vision from Bran Stark last season, obviously with some huge implications. We know that Lyanna is part of the equation. That is his mother. That is something that we've been looking forward to for quite some time in the Game of Thrones and the Song of Ice and Fire series. And he's the king in the North now. We saw Lyanna Mormont speak up for him, and everybody, all the bannermen are basically behind Jon, which is crazy. So we've got a lot of different alliances going on, and we have Littlefinger in the background. So there's going to be some stuff that we're going to have to sort out. Obviously, Sansa being there is very important, and obviously we have support through Davos, who I think will be his hand of the king. And Littlefinger's in the background going to be trying to be meddling with what's actually going down with all the synchronization in the North now that it's stabilized with the Boltons gone. So I think there's going to be some really interesting stuff going down with Jon. Obviously, in Episode 1, we're going to have to tie up all the loose ends and the rulings in the North, because I think that Littlefinger's going to be a problem.
I completely agree. That look Littlefinger and Sansa shared definitely has me curious as to what's going to be the result of that when we start back up in Season 7. Because you know Littlefinger is definitely up to something, and as soon as Jon Snow turns his back or leaves Winterfell, Littlefinger will get back to work trying to continue to manipulate Sansa even more. He will probably continue to tell her that Jon Snow is a bastard, as if she doesn't know that, and that he doesn't deserve to be king, nor does he deserve any lands, especially Winterfell, and that everything should be hers. I'm really looking forward to seeing this plot thread play out. But GrayArea, when Season 7 begins, what do you think we will see Jon do first? What will be his first order of business?
I think his first order of business is probably making appointments. He has a lot of appointments to make, like when Ned left and took everyone with him. Catelyn had a lot of appointments to make, but Robb actually wound up making them. So I think the same is for Jon. Like, he's going to have a hand. He's going to have a master of horse and all of that stuff. And I also think he's going to get some ravens, one from King's Landing and one from Dragonstone. And he's going to have to make a choice.
What are you thinking, Secrets?
He's got one focus. He's the only one that knows about the White Walkers. He's the only one that really understands that threat. And I think he's going to be laser beam focused on that. I mean, he's got to get his house into order. He'll have to put people in the right places. He needs to get the North in order. The North's been decimated. There's a lot of problems going on in the North, remembers, but there's problems, and now he's king of the North, so it's his job to sort that out. And without the North, he can't go and fight the White Walkers. So yes, he's going to be focused on the White Walkers and beyond the wall, but he's got so much to get organized first, unfortunately. I think he's going to find it frustrating, but we shall see. I think he will embrace his role as King of the North in a way that he might not have done prior to him being killed. And I think that's one of the subtleties we are seeing in him being resurrected. I was hoping for a bigger change. How about you? Did you think that he changed enough?
I'm actually not sure how much he has changed as of right now. He definitely appears to be more fearless, like we saw during the Battle of the Bastards when he was trying to save Rickon, when his horse was shot with arrows and stumbled and Jon fell off the horse. He just kind of stood there and stood his ground, and appeared to accept his fate at that moment. He didn't even flinch when those horses were charging at him. That was kind of surprising, and I don't think I could have just stood there like that. But I think Jon definitely understands death a little better at this point, and he even told Melisandre, "If I die, do not bring me back." That is a fearless thing to say, so he definitely isn't afraid to die now, but we know that the Lord of Light, at least in Melisandre's eyes, has different plans for Jon Snow. But what I'm also wondering is, how many men does Jon actually have at this point? During the Battle of the Bastards, his army was completely decimated. We know he has some of the northern houses back now, and he has the Vale, kinda, assuming Littlefinger will continue to play ball, which I doubt he will. GrayArea, I know you just made a video about the size of the northern army at this point. How many fighting men does Jon have?
Well, I think he has about 94,000. 94,000 men. And that's with all the northern houses, the wildlings, the men of the Vale. That was even including some men from the Riverlands and stuff. So yeah, 94,000.
That's actually not too bad then. So Kyle, when Jon does eventually leave Winterfell to make more alliances to get his army even bigger and stronger, because the Night King and his army are inevitably coming, I think we all can agree that the wall will come down, or they will come through the wall, or around the wall, over the wall, whichever the case may be, but I think we all believe they are going to make it south, and Jon is not fully equipped to fight them right now. He still needs more men, and the proper weapons to supply all those men. So when Jon Snow does leave to take care of these issues, who will he leave at Winterfell to stay in charge and hold down the fort?
Well, I mean, Sansa's going to be left behind. I think that, a lot of people are making the Sansa Littlefinger connection, and people are saying that she's going to betray Jon. I don't think that's going to happen. As we saw, as we just spoke about Jon's fireside, the natural evolution of Jon, killing the boy, becoming the man. He's becoming more of a fiery leader, and I think people will really rally behind that. So I think that he will leave Sansa behind, but he will also leave someone like Tormund and probably Ghost, who's not really a human, but I mean, we all know how amazing Ghost is, and how amazing he was with protecting Jon. We saw all the stuff we saw all the stuff with the Night's Watch, how closely he guarded Jon, and I think that Ghost would do the same, sensing the Stark blood within Sansa. So I think you make a great point, Dan, obviously, and Gemma made some great points about how aware Jon is about the scenario with the White Walkers. He's the one who is only truly thinking about the future, the very big picture. So I think that he's going to leave Sansa behind, reluctantly, but there's people like Lyanna Mormont and Lord Glover who are going to stay behind when he takes Davos and he goes to Dragonstone with him. So I'm not as fearful as some other people, but I think Sansa will be in good hands with a good support group like Brienne of Tarth and those kinds of people.
I agree with you, and I hope he does leave Tormund behind to stay with Sansa. And like you said, Brienne should be there for her too. She may not even know they have Winterfell at this point because she left to try and get support from the Blackfish for the Battle of the Bastards, but that battle ended up happening already before she could even make it back. But I think we're all confident that she will make it back to Winterfell, and Brienne will be a good person to have at Sansa's side while Jon is gone, because we know how loyal she can be and what she is willing to do in order to protect Sansa. Like we saw in Molestown when her and Sansa met with Littlefinger. She actually grabbed the handle of her sword and was ready to kill Littlefinger right there on the spot. So with Tormund, Brienne, and possibly the Hound could make it there, Sansa could end up with a pretty strong support group there with her while Jon is gone, just in case Littlefinger will try and stab Jon in the back and claim Winterfell for himself while he is gone.
If I can add one more point, I saw something funny the other day. If Lyanna Mormont had 3 dragons, the show would be over in 2 seasons. I think we got to think about her. So she's a force to be reckoned with, man. She got the whole speech started. So I think Lyanna Mormont will have a bigger impact than we think.
Yeah, she'll definitely be up there too. I don't really know what she could do physically, but you're right. She does have a very large voice. But what I wanted to ask one of you was, we did get a official photo from HBO that appears to be Jon standing in the crypts. Do you think Jon's going to go down into the crypts before he leaves Winterfell to go south?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that photograph, he was definitely in the crypts. There's no doubt about that. I think he was probably looking at that statue that we're all hoping he was looking at, but I think it's going to be a massive troll, a big tease. It's going to be, he's going to go down there either to pay his respects. He will have to bury Rickon. He said that in the end of the last season, that he has to take his brother down to the crypts. So he will be going down there, and there's going to be a moment, a fleeting glimpse perhaps at the statue of Lyanna, and the audience are going to hold their breaths, and then he'll walk on and we'll all be screaming at the TV, and that'll be that for now.
So you do think he's going to look at Lyanna's tomb before he leaves?
I do, yes, I really do, and I think it will just be a big tease.
Do you think he's going to do that because he's just paying respects to his entire family, or do you think something's drawing him down there?
Yeah, no, I think it will be more. I think there'll be a big question mark over that. Was he just paying his respects? Was something calling to him? I think there will be a moment that we'll be talking about for a long time, that can be interpreted in many ways. But I personally feel that there will be a draw, like a presence, something that causes him pause, makes him stop and just glance where he didn't expect he would glance, and he doesn't really know why, and the audience are going to go crazy. There's going to be videos about it all over YouTube, speculation, the works. But yeah, I think there's a draw. I mean, throughout the texts, those crypts are positively screaming at Jon Snow to go down there, and I think the show will nod to that.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I love the idea of that. I hope they do give us that. GrayArea, what do you think? Do you see Jon going down into the crypts before he leaves, and do you think he will stop at Lyanna's tomb?
I absolutely think he's going to go into the crypts. I don't know if he goes in the crypts right before he leaves or right at the end of season 7. Like when he gets back to Winterfell. It looks kind of like when he's leaving, he's stopping by the crypts. He might want to say a prayer to Ned, because according to the show, Ned is in the crypt because he says, bury Rickon next to my father. So he might want to say something to Ned, and maybe he finds a harp or a dragon egg. Maybe he finds who his mother is. I have no idea what he's going to do down there. And I think you did a video that a crow would lead him down there.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a possibility. I mean, we saw the three-eyed raven lead Bran to the crypts, so now that Bran is the three-eyed raven, I think he could do the same for Jon now that Bran knows who Jon's mother is. And you're right, that actually could be a photo from the end of season 7. Bran could actually be in that scene and he's just out of frame. Like, that could be Bran taking him down there and we just don't know it because they're only showing Jon Snow, like a close-up of Jon Snow. What do you think about that?
I think that's possible. I think Bran could just be out of the clip and it's Bran down there with him, or I think he's down there. I think that's going to be like a pivotal moment in the show. And that might be the cliffhanger that they make us wait another year to see how that plays out.
Kyle, what do you think about this?
I think you guys pretty much nailed all the points here. There's a few interesting things that I've been reading up on the Crypts of Winterfell. And Ned, I believe all the Kings of Winter, they get their crypts before they die, right? So I think that it's possible that Ned hid Jon's crypt knowing how important he would be to the family eventually, or maybe not. Maybe he just put the crypt down there because, we know how close he was with Lyanna. We know how fond he was of Lyanna, his sister. But I think that it's possible that his crypt is just hidden at a lower level. We know that he was hiding a lot of information from Robert. That's why he brought Jon back to Winterfell in the first place. I tend to think that maybe his real name is actually within the crypt, hidden within Winterfell. And in the books and through the show, we don't really get the same thing from the books, but in the what I was trying to say was in the books and the show, things are a little bit different. But in the books, Jon wonders why he doesn't belong down. He feels like he doesn't belong down there. So it's really interesting. It'll be really interesting to see, as Gemma said, and you guys said, it's going to be one of the biggest moments in the series, I think. And because we all know how special Jon is. So for him to find out his parentage, perhaps for Bran to be part of that process is really huge.
Yeah, what does everybody else think about that? Do you think Jon has his own tomb down there and could possibly reveal his true name? Does anybody have anything to add to that?
I'm not sure about that. For some reason, maybe. I mean, it's definitely a possibility, but where Ned was so protective and trying to hide about who Jon was, I don't think he would leave any clues anywhere. That's just my opinion. But I mean, it's a good possibility.
I think if he does have a tomb, it will be like Kyle said on the lower levels. There is an area that is blocked off from rubble. Perhaps that's on purpose. Perhaps Ned Stark's brought that rubble there to make it look like an area has been caved in, so no one will go into that area, and perhaps that's where it is. I don't think it will be openly on display. I think it would be somewhere that would have to be actively sought out.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was actually going to say it would be risky for Ned to do that, like Gray said, but it could be in those lowest levels where the crypts are partially collapsed, just like you said. So, yeah, if it is down there, like Kyle says, then it would have to be in those lowest levels to where nobody ever goes. Kyle, what I want to ask you is, when Jon Snow leaves Winterfell to head south or wherever he's going to go to make these alliances, who do you think he's going to take with him?
I think it's going to be solely Davos, and there's good reason for that. I think Jon is still going to be skeptical of all the things that are happening in the north. Obviously, the Umbers and the Karstarks, they betrayed the Stark family after thousands of years of allegiance, or hundreds of years of allegiance, sorry. And I think that we saw Davos' worth, especially on Bear Island. Davos really proved himself. Not that he had to. I think that a lot was known about Davos through his inner workings with Stannis Baratheon, but I think that Davos is the perfect man for the job. I'm a firm believer that Jon's going to be king in the end, that Davos will actually be handed the king, someone from Flea Bottom, and he has a lot in common with Jon. He came from Flea Bottom. Jon's a bastard. They are both probably treated in similar ways, so I think that Davos and Jon are kind of the dream team as far as being pragmatic and knowing what's really good for the realm. They really, really actually care about the people, so I think that it's just going to be Davos and Jon. It's going to be more of a secretive mission. I think that they're going to be really low-key with all of the stuff going on in the kingdom. So I think that Davos and Jon are going to be the only two that are headed to Dragonstone.
Yeah, I agree with you. Davos is definitely the man to take. We know he's probably the best negotiator in the show, and if you want to go anywhere to strike any kind of deals or alliances, then you definitely need a smooth operator, a smooth talker like Davos, because we've seen Jon try to talk his way out of things or negotiate terms and stuff like that, and it never worked out that well for him. But Davos usually strikes a deal with pretty much anybody he's ever spoken to, kind of like we saw at the Iron Bank, then we saw with Lyanna Mormont. So you're right about that. Davos would be the best man to take with him. Does anybody else have anything to add to that? Do you think Jon will take anybody else besides just Davos?
No, I'm in complete agreement. I feel that Davos is an asset. We know for the reasons that you've just said. But I also think he'll be really reluctant to leave Winterfell unattended, especially when you consider what happened before when Catelyn and Robb and everybody left Bran, and then obviously Theon came in and did his thing. So I don't think Jon will be willing to leave Winterfell unattended, so he will essentially make that sacrifice to go unarmed almost without the backup, because he'll prefer to leave it at Winterfell.
I agree with you guys. I don't think he takes anyone with him, especially like when we see Catelyn and Sir Roderick go down to King's Landing. They don't take a party with them because they kind of don't want to draw attention to themselves and that kind of thing anyway. And I don't think he'll want to leave I think he'll want to leave as many men at Winterfell as he can.
How do you think he's going to get down there, Gray?
How I think and how I want are two different things. I think he actually might take a ship from White Harbor. So in none of the pictures that were released, we don't see any horses anywhere. I mean, maybe we shouldn't see horses on a beach or anything, but we don't see any horses visibly. And we know like the Manderleys at White Harbor had this big fleet I think that they might actually ride up on this sea battle, Jon and Davos. And they might be like picking up some of the remnants. The sea battle could either be going on or over, and they might pick up some of the remnants of the people in the water or something and take them back to Dragonstone.
Now that would be very interesting. I never even considered that. Shit, I like that idea.
That's straight fire. Like my mind just exploded. If I had the soundboard ready right now, I would press a button that would go choo choo, hype train all aboard. But I don't have it, so I'll just say it out loud. Yeah, ditto. I never thought of that possibility. Obviously, going to Dragonstone, how long is it going to take? Are they taking Littlefinger's jetpack? Are they going there in one day? We know that we have a truncated period of time in Season 7 and Season 8. We're only getting 7 episodes in Season 7, so how fast do they get there? How fast do they negotiate with Daenerys and all of them? It's going to be really interesting. So does the battle go down episode 1 and then they're there like episode 2 maybe? Like, do they leave right away or right at the end of the episode? I got to assume they got to be at Dragonstone by episode 3, right?
Yeah, I'd agree. I think episode 1, Jon's going to have to set up shop and get everything in place in Winterfell before he takes off.
Yeah, definitely in agreement there. I think Gray made some great points. I don't have much more to add other than I think that Davos is an amazing asset for Jon, and they got to make quick moves because the Night's King and his army are moving pretty fast, and pretty much everyone else is oblivious. So,
absolutely right. Secrets of the Citadel. Where do you think Jon goes first to try to make these alliances?
Well, I think he's going to be in the process of getting his house into order. I think he's going to be focused on that, and then I think, like Gray said earlier on, a couple of ravens are going to land. He'll be getting one from Cersei from King's Landing, come over here and bend the knee and all of that jazz. And then he'll get one from Daenerys, same message. And he'll have to make a choice. And I think, dragons have a little bit more firepower than lions. So I think he's going to go to Daenerys, but not to bend the knee, not to swear fealty, to basically tell Daenerys that, look, this is what's going on. This is what's important, these thrones, and none of this matters. And you basically need to get those dragons and bring them down to the wall and sort this out, because otherwise we're all screwed, basically.
Do you think when Jon receives a raven from King's Landing from Cersei saying she's the new queen, bend a knee, do you think he'll just send it back saying return to sender, go fuck yourself?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. His focus, like I said, his focus is going to be Night King on the show, at White Walkers. That's what he's interested in. He knows that's what's important. He may consider at a later date to go to Cersei and say, you need to join all of us. We all need to join together. That's what Davos said, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. But I think first and foremost, he's going to go where the firepower is, and he's going to go to Daenerys. So Cersei's just going to have to wait, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Does everybody think Jon is heading to Dragonstone solely, or do you think he's going to make any stops on his way there first?
I think he is going to Dragonstone. I don't even know if his original destination will be Dragonstone. Like, maybe he says, I'm going to go to King's Landing, or I'm going to go this way, and then he stumbles upon dragons flying around, and he's like, oh, I need to go to Dragonstone. Or but I don't think he's going to have time to do anything. Like, with 7 episodes left, by episode 3, he has to be in Dragonstone. So I don't think he'll make any stop. If he takes the water, he's not going to make any stops. But if he takes the King's Road, he's going to make probably a lot of stops.
Yeah, I agree with that. When he does make it to Dragonstone, how do you think they're actually going to greet Jon? Because we know Daenerys, she wants the throne. Well, she might not technically want the Iron Throne, but she wants to remove Cersei from power, and she wants the Targaryen, specifically herself, in power of Westeros. So when Jon shows up, talking about we need to go north. There's a great war that's north that's more important than everything else you're doing down here. How do you think they're going to receive Jon down on Dragonstone?
I think that they might receive him well. She needs to make alliances. She has these big numbers, but I really think she is going to lose a lot of people in this sea battle. I think she's going to lose at least half of her army. So she's going to be needing alliances. She's going to need these houses, and she's going to need Jon. She might not know it off the bat, but she's going to need him. And I've never seen her be blatantly disrespectful to anyone that didn't deserve it. And I don't have any reason to believe that Jon is going to come at her like, hey, bitch, I need you to come do this. I think he's going to be respectful, so he'll be received respectfully. And then she's got Tyrion there, and Tyrion knows Jon, so he can kind of mediate for her.
Yeah, I definitely think Tyrion will be the one to kind of bridge that gap. Tyrion has relationships with Jon and Daenerys. He don't know Jon as well as he knows Dany at this point, but we all saw their relationship at the Wall. And they did become friendly before they kind of went their separate ways, with Jon staying at the Wall and Tyrion going back down south. In my eyes, it felt like they were fond of each other at that point, because Tyrion was no longer calling Jon a bastard. He did call him Lord Snow. And then Jon was no longer calling him the imp. He said, I'm sorry to see you go, my lord. So I think Jon and Tyrion will kind of rekindle that relationship. Kyle, how do you think this is going to go over when Jon gets to Dragonstone? How do you think Tyrion and Daenerys is going to receive Jon when he gets there, talking about, hey, forget the crown, I need you up north?
Well, you guys just made the connection with Tyrion and Jon, and obviously Tyrion imparted some knowledge onto Jon very, very early on in their workings together. So when they traveled to the Wall, we obviously saw that camaraderie, and that was very important. We knew that at some point they would get back together, and perhaps that Tyrion would be a bridge between Jon and someone else. So that's really important. They may encounter some trouble on the way to Dragonstone. We do know that Shipbreaker Bay is right there, so maybe Euron is going to ambush someone there, and maybe that's what, maybe Gray's right on the right track there. So they know how important it is to get to Tyrion and really solve all this stuff, because not only are the White Walkers coming, but there's all this other stuff going on. So I think that the sides will be amicable for the most part, and Tyrion will be a big part of that. Tyrion and Davos together. Obviously, Davos has seen a lot in his workings with Stannis. Stannis was very rigid. He didn't waver a lot on the things. Stannis didn't waver very much in what he thought, and he had Melisandre in his ear. And I think that Jon is a little bit more open-minded than Stannis. So I think that they'll be able to work together. And I think that Daenerys overall, I think she'll be really smitten by Jon, because he won't want to bend the knee, right? So she likes these strong male type of characters who are really confident in themselves. So I think that it won't go over good at first, but later on, Tyrion will really smooth things over, and he will say, hey, listen, we really need you. We need to get rid of my crazy sister. She's the Mad Queen. She blew up the Sept of Baelor. And then Jon will be like, listen, we really need you. So I think they will come to some sort of compromise in the end, and it will be pretty sweet. Tyrion and Jon back together. That's going to be one of the best moments of the season, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And we know Tyrion was starting to believe the threat beyond the Wall, too. Like when him and Jon were first traveling to the Wall, we know Tyrion kind of said that line he fed to him and said, you don't really believe in grumpkins and snarls and stuff like that. But we know Tyrion started to become friends with Maester Aemon and Lord Commander Mormont. They started to tell Tyrion about the threat beyond the Wall and how badly they needed men. And when Tyrion got back to King's Landing, he told Cersei, they need men. And Cersei basically gave Tyrion back his same line, saying, you don't believe in grumpkins and snarls and shit like that beyond the Wall. And Tyrion was like, I don't know what I believe, but Lord Commander Mormont would not lie. So at that point, I think Tyrion was starting to change a little bit. He was starting to believe that there was a threat beyond the Wall. So I think that will help Jon a little bit when Jon comes down and starts preaching about the Night King and the White Walkers. Tyrion could help Jon when it comes to negotiating or trying to build this alliance with Dany, saying, hey, John's not a liar. He's been at the wall. He knows what's going on. The Lord Commander Mormont and their maester told me these things, so I would believe John. If he says there's a threat, there is a threat.
As you know, I'm all about the books. I mean, I love the show and I love the books both separately. But in the books, when Alistair Thorne comes to King's Landing with the hand that's then rotted away by this point, it's a Tyrion chapter, so it's Tyrion's point of view, and he's not buying it at all. He does have a momentary fleeting thought about when he was stood on the wall and he was looking out and he had that foreboding feeling, but then he does dismiss it. I think he will trust John's word, though. Like you said, John's been there, he's been at the wall, he knows what's out there. Who better to know what's out there than Jon Snow? And I think if there was any doubts for Tyrion, ultimately he will believe the word of his friend. That was the last thing they said to each other. They shook on it, they said they were friends, and that's a big foreshadowing to how that relationship's going to come back around in the future, and that's happening now. So I think Davos as well will vouch for Jon. I think Tyrion and Davos are going to be the glue for Daenerys and Jon. I think Daenerys is going to go with the shock and awe. Hey, look, I've got dragons, and she's going to expect a certain reception that then she's not going to get from Jon Snow. Like Kyle said, she might secretly quite like that. But ultimately, I think they're going to be at odds with each other. But then they've got Tyrion and Davos that will bring them together. I think without Tyrion and Davos, Dany and Jon might be a different story.
Do you think Dany's going to ask Jon to bend the knee?
Yes, I do. I think she's going to expect him to. I think that's why she will send a raven. And he's not going to, because he's not interested. That's not what's important. Maybe he does. No, he's not. He's not going to. Definitely not.
What do you think about that, Gray? If Jon shows up and Dany says bend the knee, what do you think he's going to say to her? How do you think he's going to react to that?
He's going to give it to her like Mance Rayder. We do not kneel. We do not kneel.
I hope he does. I hope he hits her with that line.
Yeah, I don't think he's going I agree with what Secret said. Like, he's a new person, and he has this I don't want to say it's like he doesn't care, but he just has this new attitude about him. I don't even want to know if it's an attitude, but it's just like his presence is demanding now. Like you said, when he got off the horse, he was kind of like fuck it, basically. Like, I'm just going for whatever. So I feel like anything that has been on his mind or that has bothered him for his whole life, whether it be him being a bastard, which I don't think affects him anymore, but I can't see him giving away his crown that he just got for Daenerys. Not that it's important, and not that it's important for him, but the only way he's gonna bend the knee is if it's beneficial to the realm. If he's gonna get her dragons and her army to help fight the White Walkers, then he'll bend the knee. But that's the only way he's gonna bend the knee.
Yeah, I kind of like how you added that, because we did see Jon Snow say that to Mance, like, just bend the knee. Like, if it's going to save your people, just do it. And Jon could be put in that same position to where Dany might refuse him and say, well, the only way I am going to give you some help is if you bend the knee. I guess we could see Jon in a similar position to where he's kind of forced to bend the knee in order to help or save his people. And I think then, just like you said, he would do it then.
Right, because when Jon says, I think he was talking to Sansa, and he says, I've killed men that I admire. Men that he was talking about Mance. So he did admire Mance, though, whatever they had their beef or whatever, but he admired him. So I think he's going to be like you say, man, he's not going to kneel unless it's to benefit his people.
And don't forget Torrhen Stark, the king that knelt. I mean, there is a lot of history repeating itself. So, you know, Torrhen did that for the good of his people, for the Northern men. No Northern men left his bones on the field of fire that day. So, you know, maybe he will.
I agree. And no Northern men's swords were put on that Iron Throne.
Yeah, that's a very good point. If Dany is kind of mirroring Aegon's conquest, then we could see something similar to that. I like that you added that in there. That's true. All right, Kyle, I want to ask you this then. What else could Jon be going down to Dragonstone for? We know he's out of Dragonglass. We know Stannis said Dragonstone is full of it. Do you think Jon will make that a priority of his while he is there? Do you think he's going to attempt to get some of this Dragonglass? We know he needs it. Do you see him actually trying to mine some of that while he's down there, or getting men to come down and mine it for the North?
Well, I actually think that's going to be the initial reason they go. I don't think it's going to be just because of the parley with Daenerys. I actually think that Jon's going to have the bigger picture in mind. And we do know that he sent Samwell Tarly to the Citadel, so obviously that's going to be a hugely important thing in Season 7. We do know that that's going to be a big storyline. Sam is far away from Jon, though, and we do know that while Sam is going to be finding stuff at the Citadels, Jon and Davos are going to be at Dragonstone, so why not kill two birds with one stone? Maybe he can see if Daenerys is going to help. He's probably not too optimistic about the matter because he does know that she views the Iron Throne as her right, and you know the things that have been going on there. He saw so much of the fighting so far. He may not be optimistic about trying to make that relationship work, but I think he for sure sees that opportunity to go to Dragonstone to get that Dragonglass, because Jon, like Gemma said, is singularly focused on the War for Dawn. That is 100% coming. So Jon and Davos are going to go there. And Davos has already been there, right? So maybe Davos has some more information than we know about. Maybe he's been to these caves, or maybe he hasn't but thought about going in them. So that's another thing, right? Davos is another connection to Dragonstone. And we know that Tyrion will be meeting with Jon. Tyrion needs to read books because his mind is so amazing. We know that he spoke to Jon about how all of this knowledge is important to Tyrion because he's a dwarf. So it's perhaps Tyrion read about this as well. So I think that all of these things coming together, maybe Tyrion will point something out. Jon will mention it, and then Tyrion will be like, oh, I read about this in a book. Or maybe Davos will say, hey, I was here before. So one of those scenarios will probably play out. And I do 100% think that they will get Dragonglass on Dragonstone.
Davos does have that connection with Dragonstone. Plus, he was a smuggler, too. And I'm not saying they're going to have to smuggle Dragonglass out of there, but he would know how much a boat could hold in weight. So if they were to try to get a bunch out of there, Davos would know how to transport that stuff better than anybody. How much do you think they're actually going to get out of there? Do you think they'll get enough to supply the whole North with some type of Dragonglass weapon, whether it's a spear or arrow tips? How much do you think they're going to get?
Just the tip. Sorry, I had to insert a funny joke. But I think that they're going to get quite a bunch of it. Obviously, if they go there, why just get a little bit? Jon saw how massive the army was of the Night's King. Obviously, fire kills the whites, but what if the White Walkers can replenish themselves? We still don't know 100% that Dragonglass kills them forever. We saw that Sam killed one, but what if the Night's King cannot be killed by just Dragonglass, right? So they might need more than we think, and I think they're going to get it. I mean, Theon, hopefully we can get some of his archery badassery back into the story. We can see some of that. We know that obviously Gray's saying that the Northern army is pretty huge and all that. So I'm thinking that they are going to need a large amount. And like you said, I never thought of that. Like Davos is a smuggler, actually knowing how much he has to bring into his boat. Like, I mean, imagine he was smuggling like treasure and shit with Salador sand back in the day when they were really doing nefarious things. So I think that they will have to get a large amount because they know that they're going to be overrun in the North sooner than later.
Speaking of Theon, since you just brought him up, Kyle, in his archery, we know the Greyjoys have aligned themselves with Daenerys. And there's a good chance that when Jon gets to Dragonstone, he's going to run into Theon and I think we've even seen spoiler photos of them on Dragonstone together. How do you think that interaction is going to go down between Jon and Theon when they actually meet again?
I'm not too sure. I know Theon is actually pretty freaking scared of Jon. Like, that's his whole reason. And like, he's not going to the wall because he doesn't want to get killed by Jon. But I think Jon is going to forgive him basically because he helped Sansa and he didn't kill Bran and Rickon. But I don't think Jon will ever respect him or accept him to be part of any army that he's a part of.
Jon is going to be absolutely fuming. What we forget, it was so long ago, but what Theon did was unforgivable. He betrayed Robb, he betrayed Bran and Lewin, the whole burning of Winterfell, that Ramsay, it was all because of Theon just trying to impress his dad. But I think Jon will very quickly realize that this is not the same Theon. This is not the man, that cocky, always smiling, always making a joke young man from Winterfell as a ward at Winterfell. He's going to realize that this is a broken shadow or shell of a man, someone who he doesn't recognize any longer. And I think Jon will back off and just pity him, to be honest. I think Theon has a bigger role ultimately, but I think Jon will be fairly dismissive of him when he realizes that there's no point,
Yeah, I like that actually. Just like you said, Jon's definitely going to be pissed off and furious at Theon, but just like you said, he's going to see that Theon is a shell of his former self. He's just like a beaten and battered man, so what's it going to do for Jon to slap this guy around?
A slap will turn Theon into a wreck, a gibbering, apologetic mess, which, like I said, is not the Theon that Jon will remember.
Yeah, I actually think that might be why Jon doesn't beat him up, just because of when he sees what type of man he is at this point. Like, he's a big pussy, you know what I mean? He has every right to be. I mean, he was brutally tortured for years. I think Jon will see that and kind of think, what's the point of beating this man down anymore? He'll definitely give him a lashing, but I don't know if he's really going to beat him up. Maybe
just one slap.
Yeah, he deserves it.
Sorry. That's funny. Yeah, I don't see Jon as like the bullying type. And I think kind of at this point, picking on Theon is bullying because he's just, like you said, he's a shell of what he used to be.
Yeah, he can't defend himself, so it'd be kind of pointless. What about Dany's dragons? Is Jon going to meet one of these dragons or all three of these dragons when he's there? And how's this interaction going to go down? Do you think they're going to be drawn to Jon, kind of like they were with Tyrion in a way?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, we do know that Jon has Valyrian blood within him. I think most of us think that R plus L equals J is the correct equation. So I think that we might have a scenario where we saw Tyrion. I'm speculative that Tyrion may be a secret Targaryen, so that's why they were so warm to him. We could have the similar scenario.
Fake news.
Oh, you're fake news. You're fake news. There you heard it, our first argument here on the Golden Company. But I think that, honestly, yes, I think it's going to happen, and it's going to be Rhaegal. Ooh, that's a spicy one. Spicy nugget for y'all.
I think he just walks up to the dragons. I mean, he might be a little apprehensive at first, but I just think he has that mentality where like he doesn't have anything to lose. He has to risk everything. And I feel like he's just going to walk up to Drogon. So I think it's going to be Drogon. I think he's going to go up to Drogon because Drogon is the
fake
biggest
news.
Whatever. Drogon, he had to get me back. Drogon is the biggest dragon. So I feel like he's just going to go up to the biggest dragon. Like when you're in high school or when you're anywhere and you're getting bullied or something and it's a group of people around you. And they say, if you go up to the biggest one and knock him out, the rest will fall into line. So he has to go up to Drogon. Like if Dany or anybody is doubting him, he has to go up to the biggest dragon and just pet him and give him a big kiss on the mouth. He has to do it. And I think it's going to be Drogon. And I definitely think he's going to do it because I think R plus L does equal J. And I think the dragons know who Jon is.
How do you think Dany's going to react to that? If he just goes up to Drogon like that, do you think she will get jealous in some type of way? Or do you think she's going to be kind of curious as to why Drogon is fucking with Jon?
She's going to be so turned on by it. She's going to take him right back into Dragonstone and just take him right there.
That's out of my mouth.
Lady
Absolutely.
boner.
Well, actually, I was thinking of something a little bit cruder. But yeah, she's going to like that.
Go on, Gemma. Tell us.
Creep.
Yeah, she's gonna be all queenly and keep her poker face on, but she's gonna be really impressed. And I agree, Gray. It will be Drogon, definitely. He's just gonna bite the bullet and do it. She likes to use the dragons. You remember when she had all of the masters in the dragon den pit under Marine, and she was, basically threatening to feed them all. I think she'll use some kind of show of power, and Jon will surprise her. I don't think he's going to hop on one and go for a little tour around Dragonstone or anything. I think it will be another tease. I do agree. R plus L definitely equals J, no doubt, absolutely no doubt. But that's not going to happen in season 7. When Jon's not going to find that out in season 7.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he's going to ride on a dragon in season 7 either.
I agree with you guys.
All right, folks, we will actually end part 1 of this discussion right here. I broke the video down into 2 parts for editing purposes. Part 2 will be the next video I release, which I will release on Tuesday. Thanks for stopping by for our first collaboration together. Make sure you go subscribe to the rest of the Golden Company. I will link their channels down in the description. Also, comment below and give us your thoughts. What do you predict Jon Snow will be doing next season? Let us know. Thanks. We will see you Tuesday for part 2. Bye.